When you have a bad season, a lot of interesting conversations percolate, and that is no different for 49ers and kind of the future of Kyle Shanahan. Obviously, we understand that there's this like fire Kyle Shanahan movement within the fan base that just want to get rid of him. And I've always talked about how it's just a ridiculous notion for many different reasons. But Mike Florio poses a little bit of a different scenario where he believes the 49ers should explore trading Kyle Shanahan and the Chicago Bears should be the potential suitors. So take a listen to what he has to say. I've got some thoughts on this on the other side.
And Shanahan, I said this after they lost the Super Bowl to the Chiefs this past year. I feel like he is on the Andy Reid path where he's never going to reach his full potential unless he goes to a new team. And his dad's from Illinois. There's kind of a,
Franklin Park.
There's kind of an appeal to that.
Yes,
but
of course.
The Chicago area. Yeah.
Come home, Kyle.
For conversation purposes, what would you give up to get Kyle Shanahan?
A first-round pick and a heartbeat, a first and a second.
Well, and would you give up two?
Yeah,
that's the thing.
First and a second.
How much would you give up to get him? And because I think you should at least have that conversation because the 49ers almost traded Jim Harbaugh to the Browns 10 years ago. Harbaugh ultimately said no or they would have done it. So who knows? If Jed York's thinking about making a change, this might be a great opportunity.
Yeah, Mike, wasn't Belichick famously traded for a first-round pick? Didn't they? Wasn't that the compensation? And how did that work out?
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't the classic utilization of the procedure. He kind of bullied his way out of the Jets. He resigned, and then the Patriots hired him. So there was a decision as to what the compensation would be. But Gruden was traded for 2 first-round picks and $8 million in cash, and I think maybe even more than that. There have been others, like Herm Edwards. There was compensation when he went from the Jets to the Chiefs. Harbaugh, like I said, was almost traded 10 years ago. It doesn't get used. It doesn't get used the way it should, and I would at least inquire as to whether or not the 49ers would be interested in doing a deal because there's only one way to find out. You make the phone call.
That is a great idea. Honest to God, that's a great idea.
That would be a game changer.
Of course.
In terms of, I think people would bristle at the idea of draft pick that high, but I think it's also you look at the quality of the coach you'd be getting in return, you could justify it easily. That's a great idea, Mike.
Well, hopefully they're listening.
Maybe.
Hey, you don't need to hire a search firm when you get free ideas like this, right?
You're a one-man search firm, Mike.
Well, one of the reasons why I think the fire Kyle Shanahan situation thing is a ridiculous notion is because it's purely emotional. There's no logic involved in it. The guy signed a multi-year contract extension in 2023, and you're just going to eat all that money and just clean house. It doesn't make any sense. And I said this in a video last week, explaining why it doesn't make sense, because why would you fire a guy where there's probably 15 teams that would pick up the phone and trade a first-round draft pick for him? That doesn't make sense. It's only a purely emotional feeling. But as you can see, Mike Florio thinks it's actually like this is what the Bears should look into. They should see if they could give up some draft capital to go and get Kyle Shanahan. Now, I don't agree that the 49ers should trade Kyle Shanahan, but again, it just puts an emphasis why the whole fire Kyle Shanahan movement is purely emotional. There's no logic behind it. And if you had any brains, you would be saying trade Kyle Shanahan. You wouldn't be saying fire Kyle Shanahan because that does nothing. You get nothing in return. You eat a bunch of money and you're worse off. So why would you fire Kyle Shanahan? And again, it just it puts an emphasis on, when people don't think things through, that there's not an actual thought process that goes into. It's just an emotional like, oh, well, let's fire him. The season's going bad. It's not going the way that I wanted to. Kyle's having a down year. Let's fire him. Why? And I've heard it many times, like we've talked about, like a million other teams, right, would come and pick up Kyle Shanahan the second he was let go. And fans were like, well, why is that a determination of, why we shouldn't fire him? Because you could trade him. The firing Kyle Shanahan notion is just a non-starter, in my opinion. It makes no sense. It makes no logical sense. It makes emotional sense because it makes you feel better when you say it, because you somehow in your brain think, oh, that's going to invite change and it's going to change the future outcome of the San Francisco 49ers. That's why fans who are upset with the current standings of the 49ers buy into it, because it fits that emotional need. But it doesn't have any logic at all. It's ridiculous. And again, I don't think you should trade Kyle either. Kyle absolutely deserves another year to be able to right the wrong, be able to take a full off season. Yes, we get it. The season didn't go well. By far, Kyle's worst year as a coach. The worst year, I think, since we were talking about this on live yesterday. This is the worst year, I think, since 2016, the Chip Kelly year. And it is what it is. It's not a good season. It's not a good year. It wasn't a great coaching performance by Kyle either. But he's done too many good things to be able to just be ousted after one bad year. The only thing that I would ever give any like kind of level-headed takes about moving on from Kyle is if he's lost the locker room, if he's lost the leaders, if they don't respect him, if they don't listen to him, if they're not going out there to fight for him and fight with him, then we open up a conversation for something else. But there's no indication that that has happened. So because we don't know that that has happened, you would have to assume the locker room is still behind Kyle regardless of the situation, and that enough right there is proof that he should stick around. So again, the whole fire Kyle Shanahan thing is just stupid because it's not rooted in logic. If you are a fire Kyle Shanahan person, at least change your logic to trade Kyle Shanahan, because at least you sound smarter, because you'd be able to recoup some draft capital. You'd maybe get a couple first round draft picks in return. I think you see my point. Again, it's easy to be emotional, make and say rash things, and again, it's why it continues to be a ridiculous comment and sentiment, because again, it's not rooted in any type of logic. It's purely emotional. It is what it is. I get it. It's been a bad year. It's been an awful season. It's not a good one. It's really just unfortunate how this season has gone, especially with all the injuries that have occurred. But it is what it is, man. So cleaning house, I don't think is uh, the path moving forward. And I think Kyle deserves an opportunity to get the path, get everything back on track. So we'll see how it goes, but curious to know what you guys think about the notion of, the Chicago Bears trying to trade for Kyle Shanahan. Should the 49ers explore trading Kyle Shanahan? You had heard that the 49ers tried to trade Jim Harbaugh. So they've tried to trade their coach before. So again, that to me is a more likely outcome than firing him. And I don't think that trading him is a likely outcome either, but I think you understand my point. Let me know how you guys feel about this in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.